For nearly 3 months, Andre Boyd had ignored every invitation his friend sent. Coffee after work, weekend barbecues, trivia nights. He always found an excuse. It wasn't that he disliked people. He was simply exhausted from trying to keep life from falling apart after his wife passed away. Between raising his 8-year-old son Micah as a black single father and holding on to a demanding project management job, he barely had enough energy left to fold laundry before midnight. There was also something on his phone he had never deleted and had never once played. A voicemail, 41 seconds long, saved under a name he still couldn't say out loud in an empty kitchen. And that afternoon the school had called. His 8-year-old son had punched another boy in the hallway. Micah would not say why, not to the counselor, not to the teacher, not to his father. Then his friend finally stopped asking him to go out. Instead, she invited him to dinner. He didn't realize until he arrived that it was a blind date. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Single Dad POV channel. The restaurant sat on a quiet corner in Pittsburgh's Lawrenceville. Rain had stopped less than an hour earlier, leaving the sidewalks shining beneath the streetlights. Andre almost turned around after parking. He checked his phone twice, hoping Shannon would text saying something had come up. Nothing. He also checked something else. The voicemail was still there. He put the phone away without touching it. Inside, the warm smell of fresh bread and roasted garlic greeted him. Shannon was already standing near the entrance, waving with the enthusiasm only she could manage after working a 10-hour nursing shift. "You actually came. I almost didn't." "I know." Before Andre could ask why only 3 chairs surrounded the table, another woman stood from her seat. "This is my sister, Erin." Erin wasn't dressed to impress anyone. A dark green sweater, simple earrings, hair tied loosely behind her shoulders. She looked just as uncomfortable as Andre felt. So Andre smiled awkwardly. This wasn't just dinner. No, Shannon admitted with absolutely no shame. You both needed someone to push you out of the house. Andre sighed. "I should have known." Shannon laughed. "You'll thank me later?" She excused herself almost immediately, claiming she had promised to meet another friend nearby, though Andre suspected that friend didn't exist. Now it was just him and Erin. For nearly a minute, neither reached for the menu. Finally, Erin smiled first. "Want to know a secret? Please." I almost canceled too. That made Andre laugh harder than he expected. The tension softened. Conversation came slowly but naturally. Erin restored historic buildings for a local architecture firm. She loved old bookstores, disliked loud restaurants, and admitted she still burned grilled cheese sandwiches despite following recipes exactly. Andre confessed that his son thought frozen waffles counted as gourmet cooking whenever he added strawberries. She laughed. Not politely. Genuinely. It had been a long time since someone laughed because of something Andre said instead of trying to make him feel better. What he did not say was that 4 hours earlier he had been sitting in a small office with a counselor and a plastic cup of water watching his son stare at the floor. "Micah, why did you hit him?" "Nothing." "What did he say to you?" "Nothing." "Micah, I can't help you if you don't tell me." And his son, 8 years old, had answered the only sentence he would give anyone that day. It doesn't matter. Andre spent 2 hours talking with teachers before calming his son enough to bring him home. On the drive, Micah watched the wipers and said nothing. Andre barely made it to dinner. He hadn't told Erin any of that yet. Instead, they talked about favorite parks, rainy weekends, movies that somehow became comfort traditions. Then Erin noticed something. "You keep looking toward the entrance." "I do. A little occupational habit." She smiled. "You expecting someone?" "No." He hesitated. "I guess I'm always expecting work." She understood that answer without asking another question. The waiter brought water, then appetizers. For the first time in months, Andre stopped checking the clock. Meanwhile, back at the office, life had been less peaceful. His department had been under pressure since the company merged with another regional construction group. Deadlines kept changing. Budgets shrank every week. 2 weeks earlier, the phrase headcount review had appeared in an email and nobody had slept well since. At the center of all that pressure stood Vivian Kessler, Vice President of Operations, technically Andre's boss. She wasn't cruel. She simply expected perfection from people who barely had enough hours to finish ordinary work. Emails arrived before sunrise. Meetings appeared without warning. She remembered every missed detail but rarely noticed overtime. Even so, Andre respected her. She worked harder than anyone else. He just wished she remembered that everyone else had families waiting at home. He was mid-sentence, telling Aaron about a bookstore near the river when the front door opened. Andre glanced up automatically. His stomach tightened. Walking into the restaurant was Vivian. Grief teaches everyone around you to be careful. Careful voices, careful questions, careful laughter offered like medicine. If someone in your life has stopped laughing, don't hand them comfort first. Hand them an ordinary evening and see how much of them comes back. She wore the same navy business suit she'd worn during the afternoon meeting, though the jacket now rested over one arm. Beside her walked another executive Andre recognized from headquarters. Apparently, they had planned dinner after visiting a nearby client. Vivian scanned the room while speaking. Then she looked directly at Andre. Recognition flashed across her face. She gave a polite nod. Andre nodded back. He hoped that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The hostess stopped beside their table. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. "We're unexpectedly full tonight. Would you mind if we temporarily seated these guests here until another table opens? It should only be 15 or 20 minutes. Andre froze. Aaron looked surprised. Before either answered, Vivian spoke. "If it's inconvenient, we'll wait." The hostess looked apologetic. Andre knew every employee in the restaurant seemed overwhelmed. Friday evenings often looked like controlled chaos. "It's fine," Andre finally said. "There really isn't another option," Aaron added kindly. Within moments, 2 more place settings appeared. Andre suddenly found himself sharing a blind date with his boss. Nobody planned for that. The first few minutes were painfully quiet. Forks scraped plates, glasses clinked. The executive beside Vivian talked mostly about airport delays. Aaron focused on her meal. Andre concentrated very hard on cutting salmon into unnecessarily small pieces. Finally, Vivian broke the silence. "I wasn't aware you knew this restaurant." "I don't," Andre admitted. "My friend arranged dinner." "A surprise. You could say that." Aaron smiled. It was definitely a surprise. For the first time, Andre saw something unexpected. Vivian smiled too. Not the professional smile from conference rooms, a real one. It disappeared almost immediately, but it had been there. There is something quietly revealing in that moment. These 2 people had traded hundreds of messages, spreadsheets, and deadlines, and had never once shared a meal. An office shows you a person's title. A table shows you the person. That is why the same woman could feel unreasonable at 5:17 in the morning and completely human at 7:40 at night. Nothing about her had changed. Only the distance. Conversation slowly became easier. Not about work, about Pittsburgh traffic, neighborhood bakeries, the old theater downtown that everyone insisted needed saving. Vivian surprised everyone again when she admitted she volunteered twice each month at a community literacy program. Andre blinked. "You teach reading." "I listen," she corrected. "Children usually teach themselves once someone gives them enough time." That sentence stayed with him, because it didn't sound like the woman who sent emails at 5:17 every morning. It sounded like someone else entirely. Then Andre's phone buzzed. He apologized before checking. The message came from Micah's babysitter. "Don't panic. Micah has a slight fever. I gave him medicine. He's resting." Andre immediately stood. "I'm sorry." Aaron looked concerned. "Everything okay?" "My son isn't feeling well." He reached for his wallet. "I need to go." Vivian quietly stood as well. Family comes first. Those 4 simple words surprised Andre more than seeing her in the restaurant. He thanked Aaron for dinner. She smiled gently. Go be with your little boy." As Andre hurried toward the exit, he couldn't shake the feeling that the strange evening wasn't actually over. It had only just begun. Andre reached Micah's room less than 20 minutes later. The fever wasn't dangerously high, but his son looked pale, wrapped in his favorite blue blanket with an old space-themed cartoon playing quietly on television. "I'm okay," Micah insisted before Andre even asked. "You don't look okay." "I mostly wanted you to come home." Andre sat on the edge of the bed. He tried once more, softly. "About today, about that boy." Micah closed his eyes. "It doesn't matter, Dad." And then so quietly, Andre almost missed it. He added something that made no sense at all. "I just couldn't remember." Remember what? But his son had already turned toward the wall. Andre sat beside him until he drifted back to sleep and thanked Mrs. Hollis, the retired neighbor who had been babysitting for nearly 2 years. She refused extra money as usual and simply reminded him to keep Micah hydrated through the night. At the door, she paused. "He asked me something strange this week. He wanted to know if voices go away faster than faces." Andre said he'd ask him about it. He didn't. He wasn't sure he was strong enough to hear the answer. By Saturday morning, the fever had already started coming down. Life settled back into its ordinary rhythm. Laundry, groceries, soccer practice, checking work emails while pasta boiled on the stove. The dinner felt almost unreal, except Shannon called Sunday afternoon. So what? Don't pretend you don't know." Andre laughed. "It was nice. Nice isn't enough information. I liked her. And my boss somehow ended up sharing our table." There was silence. Then Shannon burst into laughter so hard Andre had to pull the phone away from his ear. "I leave you alone for one dinner and somehow you turn it into an office meeting. It wasn't exactly planned." "No kidding." After she finally stopped laughing, Shannon became serious. "Aaron said you left because your son wasn't feeling well. He is better. And she hopes you'll call." Andre looked toward Micah, who was building a cardboard rocket in the living room. "I think I'd like that." Monday arrived faster than Andre wanted. The office looked exactly the same. Coffee cups, blueprints, people pretending not to be tired. Only Andre felt different because he couldn't stop wondering whether Friday night would make work awkward. At 10 o'clock, he received a calendar invitation. Meeting with Vivian Kessler. No explanation. His stomach tightened. He replayed every unfinished report in his head while walking toward her office. "Come in," she said without looking up. Her office overlooked the river. Everything on her desk sat perfectly aligned except one framed drawing made with bright crayons. A child had drawn 2 people holding hands beside a very crooked house. Andre had never noticed it before. Vivian finally looked up. There was no trace of the woman from the restaurant. "The merger review lands in 3 weeks, she said. "Your department is on the list. One presentation decides whether 9 people keep their jobs. I want you to run it." Andre waited for the rest. "Thursday the 12th, 8 in the morning, headquarters." He almost said yes automatically. Then he heard himself ask a question he had never asked her before. "And if I can't?" Vivian looked at him for a long moment. "Then someone else runs it, and I can't promise what that means for your team." He walked out with the strangest feeling. She hadn't been cruel. She had simply never once considered that a Thursday morning might already belong to something else, because it did. That afternoon, the school called again. There had been a second incident. Micah had shoved the same boy against a locker. This time, there would be a suspension and a formal hearing with the principal, the counselor, and the other boy's mother. Thursday the 12th, 8 in the morning. Andre sat in his car in the school parking lot for 11 minutes without turning the key. That week should have been the worst of it. Instead, something good happened which somehow made everything harder. On Thursday afternoon, Andre received a text from Aaron. "Still terrible at making grilled cheese. Need professional advice." He smiled for the first time in days. "I'm only qualified to supervise frozen waffles," she replied almost instantly. "Good enough." Dinner Saturday. This time it wasn't a blind date. They met at a neighborhood cafe instead of an expensive restaurant. Conversation flowed much more easily. Aaron asked thoughtful questions but never pushed when Andre wasn't ready to answer. She spoke openly about her own divorce, admitting that starting over in her late 30s had felt lonely in ways she never expected. Neither of them tried to impress the other. That was probably why they enjoyed each other's company so much. She asked gently how Micah was doing. "Fine," Andre said. "Just a rough week." It was the first lie he had told her. A week later, she met Micah. Andre had worried the introduction would feel awkward. Instead, Micah spent 20 minutes enthusiastically explaining every planet in the solar system, while Aaron listened as though he were giving the most important presentation in the world. When he finished, she said, "I think Saturn is still my favorite." Micah grinned. "Mine too." On the drive home, he quietly asked, "Can she come over again?" Andre smiled without taking his eyes off the road. "I hope so." For about 4 days, life felt survivable. Then the hearing letter arrived in the mail, official and cold, and Andre finally did the thing he had been avoiding. He went to Vivian's office and asked her to move the presentation by 2 hours. She didn't even look up from the schedule. "I can't. Headquarters flies in that morning and out that afternoon. Andre, this is 9 jobs." "I know," he said. "It's my son." "Everyone has a reason," she answered, not unkindly, which somehow made it worse. He stopped sleeping. He worked until 2 in the morning building slides, then sat on the floor outside Micah's door because he didn't know what to say on the other side of it. Aaron called twice. He let it ring. She texted. He answered 11 hours later with the word busy. She wrote back, "Okay," and then nothing more, and the silence that followed was the loudest thing in the apartment. On Tuesday night, Micah found him at the kitchen table surrounded by printouts. "You're going to work on Thursday, aren't you?" "I haven't decided." His son nodded slowly, the way children nod when they already know the answer and are just being polite about it. "That's okay," he said. "Mom used to say you always come back." Then he went to bed, and Andre sat there until the coffee went cold and understood that his son had just forgiven him in advance for something he hadn't even done yet. That was somehow unbearable. At 6:40 on Thursday morning, Andre stood in the parking garage at headquarters with his laptop bag on his shoulder. He thought about a woman kneeling beside a nervous child refusing to rush him. He thought about 41 seconds he'd never had the courage to play. He thought about 8 years old and a locker and a boy who would not say why. He took out his phone and did the hardest thing he had done in 3 years. He asked for help. He called Priya from his team, then Dev, then 2 others, and he sent them everything he had built, and he told them the truth, which was that he could not be in 2 places and that he needed them. Then he called Vivian and said 8 words with no apology attached to them. "I won't be there. My son needs me." There was a pause on the line long enough that he thought the call had dropped. "Understood," she said, and hung up. He drove to the school with his hands shaking on the wheel, absolutely certain he had just cost 9 people their jobs. The measure of a person isn't the moment they do the right thing. It's the moment right before when they still believe it will cost them everything and they go anyway. The room was small. A principal, a counselor, a folding chair, and a woman named Denise with her arms crossed, and her own son beside her, a boy with a bruise on his shoulder and eyes on the carpet. They asked Micah again why. Micah said what he always said. It doesn't matter. And Andre, who had spent 3 years fixing, arranging, scheduling, and solving, did none of those things. He remembered a sentence from a restaurant table. Children usually teach themselves once someone gives them enough time. So he pulled his chair around, sat next to his son instead of across from him, and said nothing at all. The clock moved. Somebody's radiator ticked. A full minute passed, which in a room like that feels like a year. Then Micah said into his knees, "I can't hear her anymore." Andre didn't move. He said mothers who die forget their kids. And I hit him because his voice cracked in a way no 8-year-old's voice should have to. Because I was trying to remember what Mom's voice sounds like and I couldn't. I've been trying since summer. I remember her face because of pictures, but nobody takes a picture of a voice. So maybe he was right. Maybe she forgot me first. The counselor put her hand over her mouth. Denise uncrossed her arms. Andre asked the only question left. Why didn't you tell me? And Micah, 8 years old, said the thing that broke his father completely open. Because you get tired when I say her name, and you already do everything by yourself. I didn't want to be one more thing. If you ask me, that is the quiet cruelty of trying to be strong for someone. Children don't learn what we tell them. They learn what we model. Andre had spent 3 years teaching his son without ever meaning to that love means carrying it alone. And Micah had learned the lesson perfectly. Andre took out his phone. His hands were not steady. He scrolled to a saved message 41 seconds long that he had never once been able to play, and he said, I've been scared of this for 3 years. Can we be scared together? They sat in a school office and listened to her voice. It was nothing special. She was reminding him to pick up milk and laughing at herself for forgetting what else she'd called about. And at the end, she said Micah's name twice. Micah listened with his whole body. Then he said, That's it. That's her. Play it again, Dad. They played it 4 times. Denise was crying. Her son, the boy with the bruise, said quietly, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was real, which is possibly the most honest thing anyone said in that room all morning. There was no suspension. There was a boy who apologized and a boy who accepted badly the way 8-year-olds do and then asked him if he liked Saturn. Andre didn't check his phone until noon. When he did, there were 14 messages. His team had run the presentation. They had run it well. Priya had rebuilt the closing herself. Nobody was losing a job. They had done it because for the first time in 3 years he had let them. At 2 o'clock he was called to Vivian's office. He walked in expecting the end of his career. She was standing by the window. She didn't sit down. 9 jobs are safe, she said. Your team told me you handed it to them at 6:40 in the morning and trusted them with it. She turned around. I want to apologize. For what? You asked me for 2 hours. I said everyone has a reason. She looked toward the framed crayon drawing. My daughter drew that when she was 6. Andre looked at the picture. I haven't always been very good at balancing work and family. There wasn't self-pity in her voice. Only honesty. I missed birthday school concerts, 1 middle school science fair because I thought a client presentation couldn't wait. She smiled faintly. The presentation has been forgotten. The science fair hasn't. Andre didn't know what to say. When you called Thursday morning and didn't apologize for being a father first, she paused. It reminded me of choices I wish I'd made differently, and I'd just spent 3 weeks making sure you couldn't make yours. She sat down. I've been scheduling around a life only I have. That assumption wasn't fair. That wasn't the conversation Andre expected. Not even close. Instead of discussing deadlines, they spent 15 minutes reviewing schedules and identifying meetings that could become video calls or happen during regular office hours. It wasn't dramatic. No company policy changed overnight, no speeches, just small, practical adjustments. The following weeks felt lighter. People still worked hard, but they no longer looked guilty for leaving on time to pick up children or care for aging parents. Repairing the other thing took more courage than the presentation had. He drove to Aaron's street and stood on the sidewalk and finally called instead of texting. I shut you out for 3 weeks, he said, because I've spent 3 years believing that letting anyone in is the same as putting weight on them. I was wrong, and I'd like to stop. Aaron was quiet for a moment. Then she said, come up. I'm burning a grilled cheese right now, and honestly, I could use a supervisor. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. Micah still missed his mother. Some nights, Andre still found himself standing in the kitchen, wondering how one person could feel both grateful and exhausted at the same time. Work deadlines still piled up. The washing machine still broke at the worst possible moment. Bills still arrived every month. But something had changed, not because life became easier, because he no longer felt like he had to carry every burden alone. Several months after that unusual dinner, the company organized a volunteer day at the same literacy center Vivian had mentioned. Andre signed up along with several co-workers. He watched his boss kneel beside a nervous little boy struggling through a picture book. She never rushed him, never corrected impatiently. She simply waited. The same patience she had spoken about that night in the restaurant. The same patience that had opened his son in a school office when nothing else could. Driving home afterward, Andre realized people often knew each other only through their busiest moments. He had known Vivian only as the executive sending impossible deadlines. She had known him only as another project manager trying to keep schedules on track. Neither had seen the fuller picture until chance placed them at the same dinner table. A few weeks before Christmas, Shannon invited everyone over for dinner. This time, there were no surprises waiting, just homemade soup, too much dessert, children running through the hallway, and adults arguing over board game rules. At one point, Shannon leaned toward Andre and whispered, "Still think setting you up was a terrible idea." He looked across the room. Aaron and Micah were laughing over a puzzle they couldn't quite finish. "No," he smiled. "I think it was one of your better decisions." Shannon raised an eyebrow. "I'll remind you that you almost didn't come." "You definitely will," she laughed. "I absolutely will." That night, taped to the refrigerator, there was a new drawing. Bright crayons, 3 people holding hands beside a very crooked house, and a 4th figure in the sky above it, drawn small, drawn carefully, not gone. The ripples kept going after the story stopped being about Andre. Priya started leaving at 5 to make her mother's dialysis appointments and stopped explaining why. Dev told his team he'd cover their evenings the way Andre had let them cover his, and someone started calling it the table, and the name stuck without anyone deciding it should. Andre wrote the memo Vivian never had to write, and on the 2nd Saturday of every month at a literacy center on the other side of the river, there is a 9-year-old boy named Micah sitting beside a 1st grader who is terrified of the word because he doesn't correct him, he doesn't rush him, he just waits. He learned it from a woman who learned it too late and taught it anyway. Sometimes kindness doesn't arrive as a grand rescue. Sometimes it looks like a friend refusing to let someone spend another Friday evening alone. Sometimes it looks like a stranger sharing a crowded restaurant table instead of asking someone else to move. Sometimes it is a manager willing to admit she has been wrong. Sometimes it is a father finally asking for help in a parking garage at 6:40 in the morning. And sometimes it is simply making room for another person in your life one ordinary day at a time. Comment kindness still exists if you believe even one good act can change someone's life. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like and share it with someone who still believes kindness matters. Life rarely gives us perfect timing. It gives us imperfect moments, unexpected meetings, and quiet opportunities to treat each other with a little more understanding. More often than we realize, those small acts of kindness become the beginning of a better chapter. If someone you love keeps saying it doesn't matter, don't fix it. Don't fill the silence. Just sit down next to them and outlast it. And when you're the one drowning, say so out loud, because the people who love you are not waiting to be spared. They are waiting to be asked.